Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jade, and this is How to App on iOS. And today, we're going to be
Shoot the breeze with a man and his fan.
with Chris Lane Sr. Oh, yeah! But first, we're going to kick off with one of his tracks where he makes an appearance 3 times. Triple to Chris Lane. This is Faded. Hello and welcome to the show, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. My name's Jade. This is How to App on iOS. It's Friday here in Australia, the last day of the week for me. Thursday for the rest of you living around the world. Again, thank you all for being here. That was Faded by our wonderful guest today, who is Chris Lane Sr. Yes, I can't contain my excitement any longer. So I first came across this character across these shows. We have many shows across YouTube where people's music is played, and then all of a sudden this video popped up of this crazy guy. At first I was like, is this James Hetfield? What's going on here? With these wild blonde locks blowing in the breeze, and with this cool rock style going on, and lyrics like that fuck, I wouldn't want to get on his bad side. I'll tell you what. You don't want to get on Chris's bad side. You'll be dead to him. No, but he's an amazing musician, and getting to be on panels with him and stuff made me really intrigued to want to have him on the show, because there's a whole lot more. Trust me, there's a whole lot more than a man and his fan, like the title suggests. So let's get on with the show. Again, I want to thank you all for being here today. We'll get around and say hello to you all very soon. Conspiracy Music says, don't end up like Zuckerberg. Yeah, Chris doesn't like the Zuck. No, who does anyway? But without further ado, let's bring on the man, the myth, the hair, the fan, the legend, the one and only Chris Lane Sr. Welcome to the show, my friend Chris.
Oh, just chilling, Jill. Hey, how are you?
Did we catch you at a bad time with your
no, just chilling out a little bit.
just keeping cool.
Just being cool, man.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really...
It's my pleasure. I'm honored to be here. Honestly, this is very cool for me, and just what a cool experience.
I'm very glad to hear you say that, because I said to you before the show too. I've wanted to. Being on panels with you, I've always thought there's so much more to this dude, and hearing some of the little stories you've told on these panels, I do realize there's a whole lot more. There's a whole lot of experience, and there's things I want to find out, and I'm sure everybody here wants to know too. So, without further ado, I'm going to hit you with the question I always smash everybody in the face with first off, and that is, Chris Lane Sr., what does music mean to you?
I'm not going to go for the cliched answer, which is everything, because that's what everybody says or everybody thinks. For me, it's just there's a song playing in my head all the time. And occasionally it's my own songs, but most of the time it's like people in the communities. I just dig their music. And so, sometimes it's my friend Dominic Torregross is playing in my head, and sometimes it's Janaya Medved, and sometimes it's Papa Tom, and sometimes it's, there's so many. Sometimes it's Gary Hubbs, and on and on and on. And then, of course, all the stuff that I grew up listening to. And so there's something, and then show tunes, of course, because, how can you not have show tunes playing in your head every once in a while? Who doesn't get out of bed sometimes and break into a chorus of Oklahoma? Or, I know I do. So is it just me? Okay, maybe it's just me.
I'm more of a Rocky Horror Show kind of show tune. It's still a show tune. But I do love
we
show
could
tunes.
do the Time Warp again.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's your show.
A bit of Sweeney Todd. Oh, yeah. I'm happy with Sweeney Todd, too. There's another show tune. And you're right, listening to music, too. We're so spoiled at the moment. Sitting here on this YouTuber sphere with all these artists, sometimes it's bizarre to sit down and get grounded for a second and go, hang on a minute, most of my music collection now is these people that I can just message on Facebook. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of rock stars, and you can put them on speed dial, or you can Zoom them or whatever. It's honestly a very cool experience to be able to reach around the world and think, man, I dig this person's music, and I'm kind of buddies with him.
Yeah, it's great. And Leela's chimed in there with a sorry with a fringe on top.
The wheels are yellow, the upholstery's brown. Yeah, all of it. Man, I was in Oklahoma for a few years, and we started off Mondays with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we sang Oklahoma, and so yeah.
Now, that song, Sorry the Fringe on Top, for some reason, it always reminds me of the movie Twin Peaks, where the dad who killed Laura Palmer, sorry if I've spoiled it, but you've had 30 years to watch the series. But that song went in his head and turned him mad. So that song always reminds me of this guy going mad and murdering his own daughter. Leela's written in here. Leela, Dirty Mind, Reach Around the World. The world isn't a sex object, Leela. Calm down.
No. Well, and see, I was going to make a crack about I Like Girls Who Can't Say No, another song from that. But see, you ruined it, Leela.
That's why
I can't go there.
One of my friends told me that they like the same thing. That's why they got a job in a morgue. Anyway, we're going down a bad place already.
Yeah.
The music, do you recall being played in your household as a kid? Who were some of those artists that your parents played, and did they have any influence over you?
Somewhat, in that, I mean, we had 3 records that I really remember when I started listening to the music on the record player. And we had Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Waters. We had Elton John's Rock of the Westies, and Grand Funk Railroad's Caught in the Act. And so I listened to those 3 albums a lot. So kind of explains maybe a little bit how I ended up like I did. You know, I'm a hard rocking guy, and then I write these lyrics that are, I don't know, just not, maybe don't go where you expect them to go. And, you know, and then there's a little Elton John in me, maybe. Okay, again, now we're not see what Leela did. She got us on this path. I blame her. Doggone it.
I didn't even say it.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I went, I should have phrased that differently.
You know what?
Doggone it.
Sometimes there needs to be air. You can't say anything. I think as people, we talk too much sometimes. I mean, I was just going to hit the drums, but I let it breathe. So, but hey, you know, Elton John is... Funnily enough, Elton John is one of those artists too that I don't listen to a lot. Like I've never really gone out and bought Elton John albums, but there's so many of his songs that resonate that you hear and go, oh man, God, the dude has written some songs that just have changed the world. There's no denying that for the amount of flamboyance or craziness or bitterness that he has, which surprises me. Somebody who writes such amazing, beautiful songs can turn out so bitter. Yeah,
well, and we got to remember that most of those lyrics are Bernie Taupin's. They're not Elton's. So,
absolutely.
You know, Elton wrote most of the music and Bernie wrote most of the lyrics. And I always did find that contrast, same as you, interesting that, you'd think of a guy with that kind of success and, you know, has kids and has been happy for presumably all these years. Yeah, he seems a little bitter, but, you know, I don't live his life. So maybe he got screwed by management.
True. Well, what artist hasn't been? You're not an artist unless you've been screwed by someone. Oh, God. Now, folks, in the chat, if you are a Wart Warrior for $1 a month, and I hate doing the ad because it sucks, but you will find a Chris Lane Senior emoji. So make sure you bang the Chris Lane Senior emoji into the chat today. I think it's a wonderful thing to have your own emoji on the internet. You've made it, Chris. Yeah. You've made it.
I literally have no words for that.
You haven't become a star unless you've got your own emoji. It's the way it works these days anyway, because you certainly don't make money from Spotify. But let's talk about, do you recall the first album that was purchased by yourself with your own hard-earned pocket money and something that was given to you, music that was given to you, maybe as a gift? It's a tough one, this.
I can't recall, any gift ones. Now, I can tell you point blank, the first album I bought was Elton John's Madman Across the Water.
There you go.
I still love every song on that album. Just wore it out. And then my taste in music is quite broad, and I've anywhere from really hard rock of that time and then heavy metal on to, I listen to a ton of Americana and bluegrass. When I'm working late at night, that's my Pandora channel, is just all bluegrass. And so I like everything in between almost. Even smooth jazz. Sometimes I'm in the mood for that. Not very often, but every once in a while.
What about techno?
I appreciate it, but that's something you can't listen to a whole lot of. If somebody does it and I'll listen to the song and go, okay, that's cool. But, 10, 15 minutes. All right, that's good. I'm out. Time to do something else.
You can admit it. I hate techno. I just can't do it. Sorry, Russ.
Just again, being primarily a bass player, man, I like the beats and the rhythm, but again, after a while it's a little repetitious and I want to move on and do something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you recall the first gig you ever went to? Like big concert, big artist?
No question. It was Cheap Trick opening for Kansas.
Jeez, what a gig. How old were you?
Right on.
Do you remember how old you were?
I drove us and I was a sophomore in high school. And this was Leftoverture album that they were touring. And I don't know if Cheap Trick had done live at Budokan at that point, or I think that may have come a little later. But, this was my first concert, and it was at McNichols Arena, which was the big arena here in Denver, and sat there with my two buddies and watching Cheap Trick and thinking, what's the deal with this goofy drummer and this goofy guitar player? And then, of course, Robin Zander, the lead singer, looks kind of like me in some ways, long blonde hair and, being a typical lead singer thing. And yeah, it was just an interesting band. I thought, well, these guys are pretty cool. I'm not that familiar with them. And then Kansas came out and just blew me away. I love their album, but they were so great live. And I've been a Kansas fan ever since. As a matter of fact, they toured both Leftoverture and Point of No Return, came here to Denver, played both albums in their entirety along with some of their other stuff. And they played for like 2.5 hours and it was unbelievable. And I mean, these guys are in their 70s and they're just killing it.
Yeah. Good first gig to be the designated driver. So at least you got to remember it.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely. Nothing worse than I've been to so many gigs, Chris, where I had my hopes up so high and stupidly drank too much and have no recollection of this isn't a gig, but it is an event. I went to a WWE show once and it was my first I'm a big wrestling fan. First WWE show, and I was so pumped and I stupidly drank half a bottle of bourbon before I went, and I have no recollection of any of it except for Chris Jericho yelling at the audience, "You're all a bunch of wankers." That's all I remember. So
yeah, had a Red Rocks concert like that. It was Pure Prairie League and the Marshall Tucker Band, and went with a friend from work. Luckily, she drove. We decided to have Everclear and Punch. That was a poor decision because the lights go down at Red Rocks, and I went, man, I got to take a whiz. So went up to the bathrooms and stumbled my way down the stairs. Couldn't find her. Kind of sat on the stairs, and then the lights came back up, found her, had to whiz again, and I was just lost. And I went, you know what? I'm going to the car. Now, I've lived in the mountains my whole life. My sense of navigation is amazing. I found the car no problem, but I couldn't find her at this concert in the seats. So I just waited for her to come out, and we drove home, kind of not probably very well. Thank God we didn't get pulled over.
Here's a question which I've never really asked anybody, and it for some reason popped into my head because of the way the world's changed. What was the last big gig that you ever went to? It feels like the world has changed so much since the last time I went to a gig.
Yeah. Well, I had tickets to Chris Stapleton, but then he got sick and canceled, and then he rescheduled when I was out of town, so I didn't get to see that one. Let's see. We did see Kansas a couple of years ago. Oh, well, it was the one Eagle that left the Eagles, the guitar player who I like a lot and who's not a jerk like the rest of the Eagles, opened for Styx and REO Speedwagon. So that was the last big concert. That was at the Pepsi Center. So that was the big one. And I can't think if that was right before COVID or after. I think it was right before COVID, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's been a couple years.
When I lived in America, I told you before this, I lived in America for 2 years, and I got to see Zakk Wylde live. I saw Mike Patton doing some solo gigs, and man, it's a different it's a different world, America, going to gigs than in Australia. When bands come out to Australia, it's almost like it's such an event because like we're so starved,
Mm.
and so. But in America, it's just like it seems. Oh yeah, they were just here like a few months ago.
Yeah, it was Thursday.
Yeah, just checking my watch. Yeah, it's just Thursday, but I really love the experience of seeing gigs in America. So much, and I even got to play in America. Playing gigs in America was even better. Playing a gig in Chicago was probably the highlight of my life, really.
Cool.
Even though there's not too many people there. All right, we are going to let's talk about school. Let's talk about how you started getting into music. What did you pick up a guitar first? What did you? All right, let me do a Ron Ward. Did you study at school? Did you have a program in your young age where you got pushed to play music, a recorder, anything like that?
No, no, nobody in my family plays except for, of course, my kids now, and they're both good musicians. But my grandfather apparently toured as a trumpet player and played by ear, but it just was never talked about. I didn't realize that until much later in life. And I was always playing sports. That was my thing. Loved music, but I was doing sports. And, when I got to be a senior in high school, it's like, you ain't going to be big enough to play pro football. And so you need to find another hobby. And I'd always loved music. So I bought a bass guitar. It was a cheap Fender Precision knockoff and some terrible amp. I think maybe a Univox for $50 from a buddy of mine who just wasn't into it, and just started to teach myself how to play. And then I ended up buying some terrible plastic, well, it wasn't plastic, but it seemed like it was plastic, acoustic guitar with the strings, 10 miles off the fretboard. And I'd just throw it in the trunk of my car, and on my lunch hour, I'd go out there and try and learn things. And, it's just like just about 18 years old. And then I went off to school and, of course, found a couple of buddies and started a band, and off we went. And we were terrible, but we got better.
The early days of music always reminds me of Joe's Garage. I always think of that song when I think of the early days of hooking up with your buddies, and we've all done it. We've all been in that garage situation. What was your first amp?
Well, I had this little Univox thing. Now, the first good amp I bought was a Sun Coliseum bass amp, 300 watts, baby.
Nice.
Yeah, well, funny story about that. I was playing a gig. I was playing a prom on the Indian reservation in Shiprock, New Mexico. And one of my genius buddies who was acting as our roadie, I think, plugged in the wrong cable. So we're doing this gig, and I keep smelling smoke.
Oh, shit.
But we can't figure out what it is. So we're done with the gig, we load the gear, and we had to leave in a hurry. And that's another story for another time. But just keep smelling this just terrible electronic smell. And I figured out, oh man, my amp is on fire or was catching fire. So I took it into the shop, and they looked at it and they said, well, your output transistors got burned because they were overloaded, and on and on and on. This burned and then that burned. And I said, okay, how much is all this burning going to cost me? And they said, hey, we got these brand new PV Mark IVs in. Let me go show you those. So that was my next big 300 watt. And I ended up with a biamp system, and we were loud back in the day.
See, I'm just the saddest. I'm more interested in the old cheap first amp because, and the reason I ask it, because these days technology has changed, I feel kids these days get their first guitar, and their first amp is probably like, the quality of what somebody has on stage. And to me, I had this tiny little 10 watt, I think it was called a Gorilla. Oh my God, it was fucking so bad. It just
the old Gorillas.
It just sounded like somebody was
those.
farting through it. It was so disgusting. But the things have changed so much with I have a practice amp which is called a Spark Positive Grid Spark. I mean, it's like $300, but I could use this thing on stage, and it's it's ridiculous, and it's a practice amp.
So much change. My kid's first drum set, his starter drum set that I bought him, the hardware was like pro level from back when I was playing. I mean, it was just big, thick, and that was like no comparison. It was like 9-ply drums, and it's like, this was a friggin' starter set. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, electronic drum kits are a godsend for families, obviously. Clearly.
Yeah.
Like, back in the day, if a kid was like, Dad, I want to start playing drums. It's like, oh, really? This is the worst thing now you can just go, yep, here you go. Sit in the corner, put your headphones on, shut the fuck up, go practice.
Well, my kid had an advantage there. It's like, I was good with it. Hey, whack him. Go for it. I'll play with you.
Not all parents, musically inclined parents can deal with it, of course.
Yes.
All right, so we'll hold off there. We'll play a song because we're at the halfway point, and then we'll come back and we'll say hello to everybody in the chat because there's a good 26 of you who've all arrived today, so thank you for coming along. I'm going to play, I'm just picking randomly because I can. I'm going to play A Cold Wind. Do you want to tell us about A Cold Wind?
Yeah, this was a song that was inspired by being in one of the Song Spark groups, and the premise was use one chord or one formation, and I'm like, okay, well, this will be boring, but I got playing around with an A minor, and I remembered a song that I had played with back in college that I never really finished, and it became the bass. Now, of course, I didn't end up using one chord for the song, but that's not necessarily the point of the group. The point is to get you to write a song, and it accomplished that. And the premise is people just in the early 1850s, 60s, when they were homesteading, and it was a tough life. And so this song is about what it's like to be out on the prairie and the wind blowing. And, there's a thought that the silence and then the constant wind drove people literally mad out there, especially the women. So this song is a little bit of homage to that.
Especially the women. We'll get back to that. All right, guys, throw those bloody Chris Lane senior emojis in the chat, folks, and we'll see you back here in about 6 minutes. Let's do it. Rock and roll. Boom. yeah. A lot of love from everybody here. Great song. So A Cold Wind that was. And let's say hello to everybody here because there's a lot of people showing a lot of love. So you guys, you know the drill here in the chat. Please make my life easy and type something, anything, whatever, in the chat so I don't have to scroll. Let's say hello to Zach Thong's here, Dom Torra, Grossa, Kim Hardin, Hudson, Mamsie, Graham, L'Reality, Naya Medved, Joe Glenn, hello to you, Sean Chandler, Hugh Caldwell, Cold Acre, Thomas Christ, Conspiracy Music, Feisty Feather. Did I get Midnight Bandit? JDL, of course. Let's see if you are typing stuff down below because I'm scrolling up now. Gregory O'Sullivan wrote whatever. Perfect. Thomas Christ. I got Zach Thong. Sean. I got Sean. Fat Panda Cat is here as well. Who else did I see? I'm trying to rack my brain. Hambo Hounslow. Welcome to you. Who else have I seen in there that I may have missed? If you want your name called out, you want roll call, type L'Reality. There you go. Zach Thong. Did I say Zach? I'm doing a hippie. Boom. Zach Thong. Boom. And Zach Thong. And boom. Oh, did I say Zach Thong? Boom. Princess LDG. The princess has arrived, everybody. Royal wave for princess. Everybody all bow. Curtsy to the princess. What the hell are we doing here? Scott Borthwick, hello to you. Who else have I missed anyone? I think I've got most of you guys. If I see you and I've missed you in the hellos, I'll try and remember and say hello and all that jazz. Gregory, Hugh Caldwell. Yeah, I think I've got most of you. Thanks all for being here. You guys rock, and thank you always for supporting the show. Yeah. All right. Where was I going to go next? Let's talk about. So you got your bass, you've got your amp, you start jamming with people. How does that go? How does what kind of music do you start writing? Do you clash with people? Do you do gigs? Tell us what went down.
Didn't do a whole lot of songwriting. We just did covers, and again, we're all basically trying to learn how to play. And it's important for me to point out, and it's one of my songs. ZZ Top was such a huge influence on me as a bass player. Dusty Hill, a great bass player, and so underrated because he wasn't flashy. He was so good you didn't notice how really good he was. Billy Gibbons, everybody knows what a great guitarist he is, but he's great because Dusty was so solid and held down that bottom, and he and Frank just grooved. And I cut my teeth playing Tres Hombres over and over and over when I was a freshman in college, and really got into those guys and just learned how to be a bass player that made everybody else better. And that's, I'm inadvertent in everything that I do. It was never my goal to be the lead singer or anything like that, but I had a bunch of lead singers who either couldn't hit the high notes or they would lose their voice, and I ended up doing it. And same thing with playing guitar. I taught myself guitar because playing bass by yourself is really boring. You got to have a drummer and you got to have people to play with. And so, I taught myself guitar as well, just so I could, do something more. And we did gigs, and, we got better and better. And, at some point when I graduated, it's like, okay, now we're going to be the next Van Halen. And we went out on tour and did all that. And the problem was we just weren't good enough. And not just the blunt, honest, we had singers who couldn't keep their voice. They wanted to party and they didn't take care of themselves. And, something I just don't understand. If you're a singer, that's your instrument. You can't drink all the booze in the bar and then think you're going to go sing. That just doesn't work. And that's been something I've always been big on. I never drank when I played because, I had to sing.
Yeah. Yeah, and just going back, I want to talk about singers as well, but going back to bass players, it is interesting how the joke in the music community is always the bass player, right? And
sure.
But I look at my time playing in bands, more important to me always as a singer and as somebody who plays drums and multi-instrumentalist, right? The bass player was always paramount, more important to me than the guitarist, because It is the rhythm section, and without the rhythm section, it has to go hand in hand with the drums. I get quite bored with very boring bass players because there's a lot of them out there who just follow along and don't understand how to play with drummers. But when you find a bass player who knows you're a rhythm section and you're not a guitarist, that's when the magic happens, that's when the glue happens. So it is really hard to come by a bass player who thinks like a rhythm artist instead of a guitarist, because it's funny, isn't it? Because it looks like a guitar, so but it's not. It's not.
No, not, and totally different philosophy and approach to it. And I always viewed it as my job was to take what the drummer was doing, groove with him, but at the same time keep the guitar player on track, because they will wander off if you're not careful. They need adult supervision, and certainly provide enough melody and things that the singer has that root note and just that grounding. And your job is to tie all those elements together and make it cohesive.
Absolutely. And, I'm a singer, and I've sung in lots of bands my whole time, and I've abused the drugs, and never was a drinker on stage, but I did dabble in some drugs, and, these things happen. But the thing that I always tried to remember as a singer was you're the focal point. You're the person putting out the message, and you've kind of got to carry yourself with some decorum. And I just knew that, I thought taking drugs would curb my mouth. Unfortunately, it made my mouth work a lot more. Yeah. So it wasn't, my problem wasn't the performances. It was the mouth in between the songs that made people want to get up on stage and punch me in the face. That's okay.
That's kind of where my little quips got developed, because, the singer would be wandering around, and you got to talk to the audience and keep them engaged. Yep. And I just developed a list of little jokes and things that, hey, the more you drink, the less we stink. And I just, dumb things like that to keep them engaged. And, when I had good drummers, they would give me the rim shots and made the material much, much better. But that's what you have to do if, your singer is not, if they've wandered off for some reason and forgot what their job is. And that is, they are the focal point. They need to be the entertainer. And bass players should be in the background to an extent. But, depending on how many people are in your band, we were mostly a 3-piece, and that's what we did. So everybody had to do a lot. It's just, and I liked that aspect of it. But if somebody wasn't carrying their weight, it went south in a hurry.
So now that, years on, I'm jumping forward a little bit here. Here you are making all this music, right? And probably more than you've ever made in your life. And you probably had no idea this was going to happen, like many people from this YouTuber sphere admit on these shows. Do you have the hunger to go and play again live now? Do you think about it in your head? I wonder, would these songs, even though, it's probably like a lot of music from these communities aren't going to resonate with a lot of Zoomers, but but there's definitely an audience out there. Do you think about it? What can be, what could be?
Not a whole lot. I did that for a while, and it was cool at that time. But man, I'm 60 years old. I ain't going to be the next Van Halen. And again, I'm an inadvertent songwriter. I just, joined a couple songwriting groups because I had made a couple friends, and they were in there and said, you should be in there. And at one point, Dom Torregrossa said, well, do you have any songs to post in this group I've started, Songwriters Anonymous? I said, no, not really. I'll play bass for people and, hang out. And then I submitted something and got a little feedback, and it was kind of good. And then next thing I know, I've written a bunch of songs, and that's become my focus.
So, all right, I'm going to skip back now because we'll come to SWA. And so what was the question I did? It was in my head and then it disappeared, like many thoughts I have. What was the name of your first band? Do you remember that?
Well, the first one, the one that we did, played, we were kind of the house band at the Copycat Club in Durango, Colorado. And Durango, Colorado is in the southwest part of the state. That picture that's behind me is in that area. That's actually the meadow where True Grit was filmed, where Rooster Cogburn puts the reins in his mouth and gallops across the field shooting the bad guys. Right. But we were the house band there, and the band name was Parallax at that time. And when we all graduated and we moved to Denver and changed some members, then we became The Wish. And we wish that things had gone better.
Don't we all?
Yeah, but it was a great experience. Jade, I wouldn't have traded it for the world. And I basically didn't play for any number of years. Got married, had kids, sold all my basses. I kept my Yamaha 12 string and one electric, and then I ended up. We joined a church because the kids were little, and obviously you have to take your kids to church because that's what you do in America. And ended up playing in church for years and years and years, mostly as the bass player. And then I ended up here again, inadvertent, got locked out of church, and I had lost interest in certain aspects of that anyway. I was there for the social, quite honestly. We talked before the show. I actually like people a lot, and I'm very engaged with them, unless you piss me off, and then you get a song like Faded written about you. But mostly I really like people, and they energize me, and I like hanging out with them. And when that became unavailable, I basically found a new community of people that I'd like hanging out with even more. And that's the community at large in the world here of other musicians.
There is a big section of people from this whole YouTuber sphere that share a similar story. Of course, nobody's the same. We're all different and unique. But people had a very keen interest in music, and then life is a bitch, man. It gets in the way, and it doesn't allow you to pursue what your interests are. So, selling the instruments, changing direction, it is a constant thing. But it's kind of how I try and describe being trans to people too, when people have said to me, but can't you just turn it off? And it's like, oh, fuck, I wish I could, really. And but music's the same.
How do you turn off who you are, And I think that's how we end up back like this. I've always been a musician. Even when I wasn't playing, songs were playing in my head, and I'd think about things, and then you end up back doing it again. And that's just kind of how it works. It's a part of what you do. The difference is now, older, more mature and everything, the things that I hear in my head, I have a lot better ability now to actually play and translate out. Where when I was younger, I didn't have the patience, I didn't have the skill, and the time to do the things that I could hear in my head and put them out there in the way that I wanted to. And that's changed a little bit, which is kind of nice.
I also find it interesting too that a lot of people. Before I go on, I want to thank Alex Backus for the SuperStickers. Thank you, Alex. That's very kind of you. I missed another one. Thank you so much. You guys help keep the wheels turning here on How to App on iOS. So feel free to do a donation if you want. It's greatly accepted. Never, expected. That's what I'm trying to say. But what I was going to say, the church, regardless on if you are religious or not, or whatever your belief system is, that's your thing, and it has played a lot of a part in so many artists I've had on here, where people have either crafted their skill in a church choir, or been a part of a church, or joined a church later on. So there's a lot of negative stuff around religion these days because, unfortunately, the dynamics in the world have shifted, and there seems to be a lot of hatred. But there is still so much that you can get from that social aspect that you talked about. I'm curious to know how you got locked out.
Well, it just, the what do you call it? The inconvenience. I love that. And, in America, we don't do anything half-assed. We either do nothing or we go to a ridiculous extreme. And we just decided that obviously the best way to keep everybody safe is to, under martial law, basically keep you in your house. And, I won't debate the merits of any of that other than, we could not physically attend the church. So, obviously I wasn't playing there. We went back and started doing live streaming from the church for months. And, we'd get up there and pretend that there was somebody there watching, and we'd play to the church members who were watching on YouTube or whatever. But again, at some point, I want to phrase this correctly, because I am a person of faith, but the church in America, there's aspects of it that have lost their way in a lot of ways. And there has been hate that's crept into the church, and there's no place for it. And there was aspects of that I just couldn't be a part of. It doesn't change my relationship and how I view things, but that became an environment that I didn't want to be in. And so I'm just doing what I've always done. I'm just doing it in a different format, I guess.
Absolutely agree. Hey, I'm all for free speech, and who you believe is what you believe, man. I class myself as a metheist. I made it up, and it's still some form of faith, because I look around at the planet that I stand on, and I worship that planet, because without it, I'd be dead. It provides. You take away the government, you take away everything else. The ground I stand on provides everything I need, and look after myself and those around me. And that's the most important thing in my life, and but there's no hate. Hate is just so messed up. And unfortunately, we are, as a species, heading down the path of hate for some reason, and hopefully there's a way to reverse it. I want to talk about, I don't want to go down to politics or religion too much, so good that we get that down there. Just look at let's get to this, because I know everybody wants this, and I want to get it out the way. When I first saw you, on your videos, I'm like, who is this wild man with this wild hair that is blowing in the wind, and almost like Yanni, and you've got your cut off sleeves, and I love what I love about it. When I first saw it, I'm like, what is this? I'm intrigued. But what I love about it is, from my time seeing you around here, is you are similar to me. You like to take the piss, all right? So tell us about the hair, the fan, and the mythological story around it.
Well, there's a couple aspects. Let's talk about the sleeveless shirts for starters.
Yes, awesome.
This is, I'm sure, spam. Go away. I just have a lot of sleeveless shirts. I used to go to the gym a lot, still work out at home every day, or try to every day. Always been an athlete, and I've just always worn sleeveless shirts. Now, when I played, that was definitely my look. But I just walk around without sleeves on my shirts most of the time, and I have a lot of black ones, and so that was kind of obvious. The whole hair thing, the first video that I ever did that I appeared in was Goodbye Dusty. And I don't have a green screen, but I had been on the old interwebs, and I'd heard about this application called CapCut. And it allowed you to kind of kill the background without having a green screen. So I did it for that video. And it doesn't work great, but it's certainly better than nothing. But it did weird things with the hair. It looked like it was blowing, and it was kind of odd. And I thought, well, okay, that's cool. I wonder if I get a green screen, if it would be better. And so I did, and it was a little bit better. But hair my color doesn't work very well with green screens as a rule. You can see here it's kind of a little weird. And the whole fan part of it was primarily just to try and keep me cool enough so that I wasn't sweating while I was doing this, because I got this little tiny space that I'm trying to film in, and I've got these little halogen lights that I put on the floor, and I'm hot anyway. So throw the lights on and everything, and nobody wants to watch a big guy sweat up close in 4K. So got the fan going, and then of course it's blowing the hair a little bit in the green screen. It's like, well, okay, that's an okay look. I guess we're going with it. And there we are. And the rest is history, as they say.
Absolutely. And, I think we all need something to make us stand out, no matter how little it is. And it's one of those things that people are going to see your clips and remember. And then the music is there as well. And so, you got to use anything you can to an advantage. Look, I've got this for you today, Chris. This is what I have in my room.
All right. See, I just got a little one, but that's an all pro fan. Well, again, you're a pro, Jade. So
well, when I turn that
something
on,
I can aspire to.
When I turn that on, I blow halfway across the room. It's ridiculous. It's way too powerful. I'm scared it's going to blow my windows out. It's like an aeroplane. But
yeah. Well, like I keep saying, inadvertent. There was no thought behind
Absolutely.
it. It wasn't like, well, I'll craft this look and I'll be sleeveless and my hair will blow and that'll be cool and people will pay attention. I just tried to make videos that didn't suck, and that's what I ended up with, and the rest is history, like they say.
Absolutely. And, I said to you before the show, part of the reason I not only for your great music and such, was to have you on to find out more than, the fan and the hair, because, and you take the piss out of it yourself, all the time in the chat. I see that. And,
absolutely.
And I think, we live in a world at the moment where people are so sensitive over small things that they can't even laugh at themselves. And you really have to laugh at yourself being an artist in this world, because, who else is going to laugh at you? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I laugh at myself every day. I own mirrors and I look in them and go, okay. I can't take that too seriously. I just can't.
I've got a sheet over every mirror in my house. So it is what it is. I'm going to play a song and we'll come back because I want to talk about, want to dig a little bit deeper into the Chris Lane Sr. story. So let me grab a song here. Do you want to select one from the list? You know what? I'm going to select one. I'm going to select this. And then we'll come back and talk about it. I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to surprise you all. Let's do it. Let me just cue it up. Make sure everything's all good. Boom, boom, boom. We are good. All right, folks, get those Chris Lane senior emojis in the chat ready to smash. And we'll see you back here in a few minutes. Let's go. This is Scars.
So they say
There's absolutely something about that song that resonates with a lot of people. Firstly, I want to say, if that song's not stuck in your head for the rest of the day, you're deaf. There's something about your music that really does stick. Yeah, I find when your songs pop up that for the next hour or so, I'm sitting here going, faded, scars. No, you do. You write hooks, and they can be as simple. I mean, the simplest things in life are often the best. And even if you aren't a fan of the genre of music, you can't deny your hooks stay in my head. So that is definitely the truth, Chris. So
Very kind. Thank you. Very humble. I try and write stuff. And again, I don't overthink anything. I just try and channel stuff that I enjoyed listening to when I was younger, things that, had a hook or something that engaged me somehow. And it all gets regurgitated and poured out in a different way through the lens that, how I view the world. And the fact that people do find them a little bit memorable or like the hooks or something is just really gratifying. And I can't express how much I'm pleased that people dig it. I kind of do it for me and put it out there because I felt like I should. And it's great that people seem to enjoy it. And it's flattering and honestly quite humbling.
Now, I know with that song in particular, I think why it resonates with me and probably with so many other people here in the YouTuber sphere of musicians is that there's a lot of us who are dealing with scars, be it mentally, be it physically. There's a lot of health issues around our community. I, for one, am very candid about my health issues that are terrible. But, every day this show helps me get out there and forget those worries. And in that video clip, you had Naya in there, who's very open about her health issues and such, and they're very much prominent in her music. And I think, and I know personally you have dealt with a lot of health issues as well. Has writing these songs helped you overcome the trials and struggles that we all deal with these kind of scars that we carry around?
Yeah, that was really the basis of that song. It was something that Hippie said. And I don't know if it was a throwaway line by him, but at one point, boom. Yeah. He said, he was just talking about his life. And he said, I got scars, but we all got scars. And he just moved on with the show. And that hit me as just profound hippie wisdom. And I thought, yeah, I got scars. I mean, I got lots of physical scars you can see playing football and hockey all those years, and some mental ones, and we all have heartbreak and health issues. My wife has been battling lupus for 25 years now, most of our marriage, and so I know full well. And of course, I was hit with cancer and recovered from that, and my sister-in-law has Parkinson's, and on and on and on. There's just everybody has, and it's all different. And that's the line from the song, they make us different, but they make us all the same. We all have those things, and we need to acknowledge as human beings, everybody is dealing with something, and you need to be cognizant of that.
Absolutely. It's one of the things we're going down this path, I said it before, of focusing on the differences instead of the similarities, because they're more important. And, I just want to say as firstly too, thank God, man, you're in remission, you're good, you're clean, all that kind of stuff. It's so good to hear. So good to hear people get through that kind of stuff, because, it's a hard slog, and it's a hard burden to carry. And we have such a great community here too of people reaching out. I've got so many wonderful friends who reach out and say, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need anything?" And it's hard. I say I'm okay, but I'm an older person. I still struggle sharing these problems.
Sure.
You carry your load and you fight through, and that's it. So kudos to you.
Well, that's the thing. I'm an old athlete, and you have a warrior mentality.
Yep.
Even if you're hurt, you're fine.
Yep.
It's just how, and I'm known in my family as being the steady one for that reason, because if the world is going to shit around you, somebody's got to keep it together. And I didn't sign up for that role, but that became my role, even when I had cancer. the thing that I figured I'm either going to recover or I'm going to die. Pretty simple, right?
Yep.
But the look on my family's face when they found out, that far and away was the worst thing. That was so, and I hated putting my family through that. I was okay on the inside with whatever was going to happen. But, and that's, when you have health issues, it impacts people around you in that way. And I think that is more of a burden in a lot of times than what you're personally dealing with.
Absolutely. And look, I was privileged enough before the show today to hear your lovely wife give you a quick call before the show, and she sounds like she's so in love with you. So it's interesting. I wanted to talk about your family and stuff because, we hear your songs and it's all like, you cheating bitch, I hate you, you bitch, and I'm going to drink whiskey and fuck you. But, I mean, it's completely the opposite. Now, you have a long marriage with clearly a really wonderful human being who you love. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that relationship with your wife? What's she think of your music as well, what you're doing these days?
I think she thinks it's a good hobby for me, and it's nice. And again, it's weird. I've always been a musician, so she's always known me in that way. So maybe it's like Giselle and Tom Brady. It's like, oh, well, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. Well, yeah, I know. Whatever. That's just her reality. Now, occasionally something will pop up. We were on our anniversary at Steamboat Springs, and I think I was listening to Hippie's show, and one of my songs came on. I'm trying to think which one it was. Probably one of my latest ones. I think it was Eyes Wide Open.
Yep.
And she's listening to it, goes, damn, that's I agree with a lot of what you're saying there, but we just don't talk about music that much. She's got her hobbies and things she does, and I have mine, and that's why we've been married for 33 years. We're really very, very good friends, first and foremost, and we enjoy a lot of the same interests. We're both huge history buffs. That Cold Wind song, part of that was based on a book that she had about pioneer women, and how so many of them just struggled on the prairie and ended up taking trains back to wherever they came from. And, that the term crazy train, Ozzy didn't invent that. The old railroaders did, because they would literally pack up trains full of these pioneer, mostly women, but some of the men too, that just couldn't take it and, had lost it out there because of the isolation. So we share a love of history, and we share hiking up in the mountains and that kind of stuff. And it's just, I don't know if we'll make it to 50 years married, but that's our goal, good Lord willing. And, both of our health holds up.
I'm sure you will. And congratulations. It's a milestone, man, holding together a relationship these days. We live in a world where people meet each other by swiping left and right.
Right.
I mean, it's so hard to meet people these days. I have been celibate for like 6 years and not because I don't want to be with someone. I'm scared of the people out there that I'm going to bring into my world.
I can't imagine. I just can't. I mean, my wife and I talk about that. If one of us left each other, I don't know what we'd do. Just roll over and die, I guess, because I don't think we could function apart at this point. I do certain things in the marriage. She does certain things, and we just let each other know what's going on. But we very much siloed our partnership in that respect. And, I think between the two of us, we're an actual whole person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could tell that even just by that short interaction I heard on the phone. You can just hear love in people's voices, and you can hear it. I don't care what anybody says. So where was I going to go? My brain is moving 100 miles an hour today. So those of you watching, and I see a few more people have joined, I would give a quick shout. Barry Glenn, Frank Terzo. I think I saw Manny, Lily Pillies. I saw Les Nagy, Laurie's Mishmosh, Rick Lisk. So if I have missed you, we did the hellos, but just a quick shout out. So if you are watching though, we've cleared up some stuff. Chris doesn't want to go out and murder all of his exes, and he doesn't want to drink.
Nope.
It's totally different, because I've heard you talk about too, like, you got a few songs which talk about drinking whiskey and that, but you're not really like an advocate for getting smashed off your face and doing all this
Absolutely
stupid stuff.
not. No, and my wife's side of the family, especially, a lot of them have run afoul of that. My youngest son he's in his early 30s, and he decided a number of years ago drinking was not his friend. Wasn't good for him. And so, no, I'm the opposite. My old guitarist battled alcoholism for years. His father was an alcoholic. Monty has been sober now for, at least a decade, and I'm very happy about that. But I enjoy a little bit of whiskey, and I saw Coldacre ask, I love bourbon, but there's not a good whiskey that I won't sample a little bit of. And how I work is on a Friday night, and that's usually about the only night that I have a little alcohol, and I'll have one or two and see if I'm inspired to write something, or if something hits me, and I'll noodle around, or I'll hang out on one of the shows and I'll have a little bit of whiskey, and then I get on with my life. And, I was just never, I've like everyone else, I drank more than I should have when I was younger. Yeah. But I luckily didn't do anything really stupid or anything really life altering. And, haven't had an issue with it, but I realize that's not true for a lot of people. And that's why I don't make a big deal out of it. It's not for some people. And probably out there, if you're listening, you know who you are. Alcohol may not be your friend. And if it isn't, walk away. Same with drugs. Drugs are bad, kids. Everything in moderation.
Moderation. Food,
yeah. Yeah. I'm a big guy. I could overeat. I did overeat for a lot of years. Cancer saved my life in that respect, because I was big when I was diagnosed, but I was so sick from the radiation afterwards that I lost almost 70 pounds. Gained a lot of it back when I got a little healthier, but I've been smaller and smaller and smaller every year ever since, because, you can't be big and expect to have a long, healthy life. Don't work that way.
We seem to be a species that's quite readily easy to just attack the thing that we continue to put into ourselves. It's like, yeah. Can we have some logic here? You have to, at some point, I think, turn around and realize that, there's a medium between that thing and your whole. Oh, God. Mm-hmm. But you
set yourself up on that one.
I know. I had to hit it. So, but there is, I've taken a lot of drugs in my life, and I'm really thankful for it. But for some reason, Chris, there are people out there, who just can't stop, and there are people who understand moderation. And I've always been that person who's been like, oh, heroin, I've got to try it once. Oh, that I've got to try, because I feel like my motto's always been try everything you can at least 3 times. The first time you'll do it wrong. The second time you'll do it with dumb fucks. But by the third time, you'll know if it's right. But at least if you have an understanding of something, you can speak on it. Like, there's so many people who have like this opinion of something, and they've not even done it. That's not telling everybody to go out there and take drugs and become an alcoholic, But yeah. In moderation, it is just the answer to life. But speaking of not moderation, I want to know about one of your hobbies, which is cooking, from a little birdie that tells me. Tell us how you've got into cooking, and how does it, what does it bring to your inner peace?
Well, I enjoy the science behind it, and just the preparation. And I'm not a big math guy. That's not what I'm good at. That's why I married an accountant. But I'm really good with ratios. 3 parts of this to 5 parts of that. And cooking is a lot of that kind of science, ratios and balancing the various tastes. And again, as I've worked really hard to get healthier and smaller, the act of cooking has become a lot more important to me than the actual eating of it. So, I enjoy what I cook mostly, although, we do have a saying, if you screw something up in the kitchen, eat your mistakes. And then you learn and go, don't make it like that again. That's terrible. But it's just something that I enjoy. And my real job is I'm a writer and a publisher, and it's a very specific field. It's railroads and model railroads.
Right.
So most people's hobby, model trains, is my job. And so over the years, I've really not become a model railroader anymore. I've just kind of, I haven't lost interest in it, but I don't really pursue it. Cooking is a lot more my hobby and the thing that gives me pleasure when I'm not playing music. And so, and I love entertaining. So, you know, I have friends and family over and I'll cook them up something and we sit around and talk, and that's a good day on planet Earth for me.
I am never going to forget the saying now. It's in my head forever. Eat your mistakes. The next time my kid gives me lip.
There you go.
Shut up, bitch, or you're on the dinner table.
You know?
I love it. So I'm going to play a song. We're going to do, of course, I have to end this segment. You know what song I have to end this segment with. And of course it is I Drink Whiskey. Let's do it, folks. Get those emojis ready. We'll be back shortly. We'll talk about how Chris writes lyrics, records music, creates videos, all this kind of stuff to round out the show. Thank you all for being here. Let's do it. This is, and I see Cold Acres literally coming in his pants over there because he loves this song. And I can say that because he's my real life friend.
Yeah. Oh, very good. And yeah, bourbon mostly. Angel's Envy. Go find Angel's Envy, Cold Acre. That'll be a treat for your mouth.
All right. Yeah, when he was over my house, can you believe this? He was over my house a couple of weeks ago shooting this video. We drank some beers, we ate some pizza, we shot some video. And as he leaves, he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go now, get an Uber and get out. Oh, we drove him to the train station. And he says, have you got that bottle of scotch I could take a swig from? I'm like, what? He just has a swig from my bottle of Dimple. What is going on, man? Anyway, this is I Drink Whiskey. We'll see you back here shortly, guys. Boom.
I drink whiskey, you tell lies, you cheat on me, it ain't no surprise. Don't shut your mouth, you don't shut your thighs. So I drink whiskey when you tell lies. Started on the day we said I do, and you swore that your love was true, till you had to judge my best man too. Then you took on all the cleaning crew. From that day it went from bad to worse. A cheating woman's nothing but a curse. Do I become the man that I abhor? Just a lonely drunk who's married to a whore. So I drink whiskey, tell lies, you cheat on me, it ain't no surprise. You run your mouth, but don't shut your thighs. So I drink whiskey, you tell lies, no more lies. My hump while he lies and cheats and steals. Made me partner and that's alright with me. I have sold the company stocks to the Chinese. With that pile of cash I think I'll go make my way on down to Mexico. Take it easy, take it slow, with a lovely senorita who's not a hoe. And I'll drink whiskey while you still lie, and I'll watch a beautiful sunrise. I left your ass with no goodbyes, and I'll drink whiskey but I won't miss you. Hey, bartender. Tres whiskeys, por favor. Mucho gracias, hombre. Keep the change. And hey, how about a round for all my new amigos? How's that sound, everybody?
There's just something about something that's so uplifting at the same time. Going, you're just a hoe. The lines are so. I think it's such an entertaining song.
Well, how many people we got watching right now? 20 some odd. Leading close. I've got to clue you in on something,
30
folks.
people. 30.
I don't take shit too seriously.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
And that song is basically a send up. I played a lot of country and western back when I lived in Durango there because I was the only bass player like in a 100-mile radius. So I got all these gigs playing country western, not my thing, but it seeped into me in some respects. And so that song is basically a send up of all these, lying, cheating, lost my pickup truck kind of songs. But it takes it to a ridiculous extreme. But the guy ends up winning in the end. And that was just the whole premise behind that is just take that whole genre and just really make fun of it and hopefully do something kind of entertaining.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your songwriting process. Tell us how you came in contact with the whole Songwriters Anonymous. How did all this happen?
I just started kind of hanging in the community and a little bit with Ron Ward and Jude Capana. And I had run across Dominic Torregrossa through the course of that. And Dominic kind of hit at us. We're interesting in that, he's a New Yorker through and through, lives in Yonkers, New York.
Yeah.
And, I'm a mountain man. I got out of bed this morning. I was a mile high, so just we're completely different geography and probably upbringing and everything. But it turns out we have a lot of commonalities. He's a cancer survivor, same as I am. And we just, early bands and then got on with life and everything. We just had a lot of commonality. We really kind of are twin sons from different mothers in some respects. And so I started playing, I'd play bass for him on a couple songs. And then he started playing a little bass and he'd send it to me and I go, okay, but you're playing like a guitar player. Think like a bass player. And, he does most of his bass on his songs anymore. It's quite good. And of course, I have limited guitar skills, especially on lead. So it's like, okay, Dom, this is above my head. Please come play guitar on my tracks. And we would exchange things. And he had started this group, Songwriters Anonymous, and it had a few people in it. He invited me to join it. And I did it primarily because I think I have a pretty good ear for arrangement and instrumentation. And people would post stuff and I'd say, okay, I like that, but the drum needs a fill here, or, have you thought about maybe putting a little B3 organ in this part and that sort of thing. And then again, inadvertently, before I knew it, I started writing songs and I started getting feedback, and then I gave other people more feedback, and it became a very positive loop for all the members of that group. That we really listen to one another and we know each other a little bit on a personal level. And I think that helps us. And we kind of know our strengths and weaknesses, and it ends up just the sum of the parts make everybody just a little bit better.
And what's the process that you go through in putting together a song all over the world where you're sharing parts back and forth? How do you kick it off? How, is it drop boxes? What are you using to share all this stuff to just send to each other, and discussions, and how you're having like chats to work this stuff out and talk this stuff through?
Well, mostly we post. I think all of us have SoundCloud accounts,
Yep.
or videos. Like we'll basically just put a still up there and put an MP3 behind it via Facebook, and just here's what I'm doing. Here's where I'm at. What do you guys think of this? And we try and post revisions as we go. And when we collaborate with one another, it's usually just we've sent a wave or an MP3. And then we put it in our DAWs and we play along, and then we send back the wave, and then they put it and do the final mix and that sort of thing, and just kick things back and forth. But it's mainly just really listening to one another and offering feedback as to what could be improved, if a lyric needs a touch up, or here, like on the Cold Wind, I had always heard the orchestration behind it. I just knew it needed strings. But the first version of it, Papa Tom said, "You're on the right track." Papa Tom Caraher said, "You're on the right track, but it's not. You need to have a little more counterpoint in that." And of course, his background is doing some of that kind of stuff. He was money, and it was a great suggestion, and it made that particular section much better than I would have been able to do just on my own.
Look, I'm not one for collaborating, and I wish I could do more of it. And the problem is that I just don't have time. How do you go with time management to do all these kind of things? Because it's a time suck. It really is. It's hard to.
Oh, it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is hard. You have to commit to it, and you have to be realistic on how long it takes you to do things. I've pulled back a little bit from it, and I've never done a ton of collaboration, but I pulled back a little bit. And again, it's primarily because I'll either work really fast or extremely slow. And I don't have that good middle speed. And I hate for people to have to wait on me for things. Most of my best stuff comes that I don't overthink it. I have an idea and I run with it, and I take it as far as I can for however many hours I got on that day. And then I'll revisit it and revise it and try and improve it as I can. And, as far as I just pulled inspiration. I have little yellow stickies all over my desk if I think of a lyric, and I'll write it down, and some things sit there for months. Or other things, when Hippie said scars, I wrote that down, and it maybe 10 days. I sat down on a Friday night, and I had a couple chords, and I started singing "Scars. We all got scars." And then, of course, I thought of Hippie and thought, well, some people got them in bars, and some got them from love. And before I knew it, 30 minutes later, I had that song complete.
So, let's talk about because I want to get into what you use to make stuff, but we'll play another song before that. So we touched on COVID, and regardless on what it happened, we can't change what happened, and
Nope.
a lot of people died. I always feel guilty. I say this all the time on the show, because during that time I was able to flourish. When I was in a time when I felt like the world was kind of spinning out of control before that, and I felt really lost, and almost like I felt like there was this moment in time where I was able to take a breath and go, holy shit, everything stopped. Even though, it's affecting people in so many different ways, there's almost like a moment to breathe. During that time, regardless of, what our beliefs are and if it was right or not, do you feel like some of your creativity was able to come out a bit more than usual?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for COVID.
Right.
And I'm a glass half full kind of guy. That's just how I look at life. There's no aspect of that you can say was great.
No.
Because to your point, a lot of people did get sick. And those who did not die, some of them have long-term effects.
Yep.
And that ain't good. There's a whole lot of bad that came out of it. But you have to look at the positives. We developed a much stronger community amongst the musicians. I think creativity flourished. And in some respects, it was different for me because I've always worked out of my house. I've worked out of my house for 20 plus years, just doing what I'm doing, sit in front of the computer. So it was not abnormal for me to, quote unquote, be locked down. What was abnormal is I had my wife and my son here at that same time. And, I was downstairs in my office. My wife set up shop in the kitchen and my son set up shop in his bedroom. And we all did our jobs. And, I'd go up and get coffee 4 times a day, 5 times a day. And if somebody was there, I said hi and petted the cats and went back. And so it just wasn't that different for me. And of course, all my friends were like, man, I can't get a haircut. I can't go out. And I'm like, well, that's not a problem for me. I'm not worried about the haircut.
Just grow your hair like me.
Yeah, I said, this is not an issue for me.
Yeah.
But at night, you can only watch so much TV. And I'm not much of a TV guy anyway. And so I used that time to start developing friendships in the community and start working on my craft. And I had always wanted to record. And I remember having to stand at the electronics store and 6 feet apart and all of this. And they only let 10 people in the store at a time, et cetera, all the things that they were doing. And I got my Behringer input-output device and hooked it up to my computer and turned on GarageBand. It's like, huzzah, I've got signal from my guitar into my computer and I can record this.
Yep.
How cool is this?
Light bulb.
Yeah. And, borrowed a vocal mic from my worship pastor there at the time, and then ended up ordering one and just started going. And, here we are now. And this is what I do in the evenings when I'm not working, and I work a lot at night. That's why people joke that, I'm no Zach Thong, that's for sure. I mean, that dude is never off the computer, but I'm pretty close. And because I work until I get tired, and then I sleep a couple hours a night, and then I get up and do it again.
I feel your pain, man. When I started this, I'd say it all the time. I got a little post-it note up the top. Why am I doing this? To get out of bed each day. That's because of my health. But I didn't expect this to be so much work. I mean, it's interesting. I love this part of YouTube. This is the moment. I turn it on where the cameras are rolling, we're rocking and rolling, I'm entertaining, we're having a ball, teaching people, meeting amazing artists. This is the great bit. It's the shit off the camera that I'm like, can I pay someone to come and do this crap? Can I get someone to do the taxes, please? I don't want to do this shit, dealing with US taxes, and my head's exploding. But, and a lot of us these days, even when work cultures change from when we were young, everybody's in cubicles now. But then even when you are at home working, you're virtually in a fucking cubicle as well.
Sure.
So
it's my own little, but I designed the cubicle and I put the ceiling up in the floor. So there we go.
Absolutely. That's the difference. I'm going to play another song, and then we're going to talk about how you make music, what you use, and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll bring it all home. And I want you to tell us a little bit about this before we play it. This is called You're Gone. What's it all about?
This is just, again, exploring, what it's like to have been in a relationship and just have it end through really nobody's fault, that both people had baggage and they just couldn't get past it. And, I live a rich fantasy life. I haven't experienced a whole lot of this personally, a little bit when I was younger, but I'm able to project myself into people's situations and have empathy for maybe how they're feeling and then channel that into the music. So this is just a song that addresses not bitterness, and nobody's upset that it's over, other than that they just couldn't make it work.
Perfect. Let's play it. Let's do this, folks. Kick back, relax, whatever it is that is your moderational go-to. That's my new saying, moderational go-to. This is You're Gone.
Boom.
Boom.
First time many times did I say I was wrong? You said it was you, but I knew all along. Was a matter of time till I found you gone. If I'd known there'd come a day when I'd find you'd gone away, maybe I would have left first and saved you from all the worst. Then I opened the door and I knew you were gone. How many times must I say I was wrong? You said it was you, but I knew all along. Was a matter of time till I found you gone. Empty house and empty rooms. This emptiness feels like a tomb. You were gone long before you left. I see that now, and I have regret. I brought all my past life, all my pain and my strife. You brought all your ghosts too, and for each other there was no room. And now that we've found that we have to move on, I want you to know that my love is still strong. We have to admit all the things we did wrong, and mourn the loss of the love that is gone. Empty house and empty rooms. This emptiness feels like a tomb. You were gone long before you left. I see that now, and I have regret.
One thing you can't deny, folks, is these songs get fucking stuck in your head. They are catchy. So you've got that going. Let's talk about something just before we get into your music. I'm going to start asking everybody this. What's your opinion on the hellos in the chat?
It's like you walk into Cheers or something and everybody goes, "Hey, Norm." I'm okay with it. I like, again, I'm a friendly guy. I like to say hi to everybody. I will certainly say hi if someone says hi to me. It would be great if you could be a little more substantive sometimes in the chat, but that's not always possible. And, and plus there are times that I'll be typing certain things and I think, man, I'm inadvertently being disrespectful to the artist that's being played right now. And I don't ever want to do that. So, like everything else, it's a fine line. Hi is good. And it's good to acknowledge people that have come into the chat or people that you know. But, we should pay attention to who's ever playing on these various shows and really focus on what they're doing on their song.
Absolutely. I'm thinking of doing a Warts show on it at some point. We have to come up with a system, I think, where we can get some kind of blanket hello system going on, because I see we jump from one show to the other sometimes, and then we all say hello to each other. We've all just said hello to each other on the last show, and it can be a bit like, I just said hello to you. It's been something that's bugging me, and I love saying hellos. And another reason I bring it up is because somebody sent me a hateful email a couple of weeks ago, and they've told me I'm an asshole because I didn't say hello to them once. Man. There's that. Anyway,
I will defend Jade in this, having done some panels and everything, and trying. Like, I'm not really getting any of the chat right now. Can't see it. And if you're trying to host the show and run the board and all that kind of stuff, it is impossible to see everybody there and see everything that's going on. So again, let's be kind to one another. The hosts work really hard, and you miss people sometimes. You just do.
Even in text, I miss people sometimes because I'm cooking dinner, or we carry around our devices to the toilet, even, and and you may be like, oh, I've got to turn those sausages over. Whoops, I missed somebody there. It happens. All right, I want to talk about this. So you mentioned during the COVID, you got your interface, you got your mics. What do you use to record? What kind of DAW do you use? Computer? Tell us your system, your layout. What do you use?
Well, I've always been in publishing, and therefore I've always had Macs. So I've had GarageBand, didn't use it for eons. And so when I got the interface, went directly into GarageBand and have, looked at Logic and did the free trial and everything. But I'm one of those kind of guys that I want to use a simple tool really well rather than have a really excellent complex tool that I spend all my time trying to learn how to use the really good complex tool. And so my videos are done in iMovie as a rule, even though I own 3 other video programs and I played with them. But I keep going back to simple tools that I think I know how to use well. And that's true for both iMovie and GarageBand for me.
Look, Pete Johns talked about this last week about somebody was saying in his chat, when are you going to do more shows on Logic? And it's like, he summed it up really well. If you're using GarageBand and everything's comfortable and you know how to use it, trust me, you're going to open up Logic and go, because you're probably going to end up using it exactly the same as GarageBand because there's so many things in there that you already probably don't need. And if you're getting what you get from GarageBand already, you're probably not going to need flex time and all this shit, because I think a lot of people look at things like, oh, but Logic could do flex time and I could move my vocals around. And it's like, no, you should be working on your vocals. Flex time can't fix your vocals.
No, just do it again. And this is, I don't use pitch correction, and not because I'm a snob about it, is because I'm too friggin' dumb to know what key I'm in most of the time. And those pitch correction tools, as a rule, do not function well if you put in the wrong key. And it's just a lot easier for me to just keep singing it until I hit the pitch right. And I don't like the artifacts that you get from, and again, I own several of the pitch correction softwares, but I don't use them because I hate that artifact that you sometimes get. And frankly, I'd rather sing a note that's maybe a little dodgy than just have one that, get that little thing that, it got corrected there.
Well, I think people get confused with pitch correction too, with auto-tune especially. I see it all the time. People are like, where can I get an auto-tune that fixes my voice? It's like, it's not going to fix your voice. Funnily enough, I saw a review of a new auto-tune app for Logic on YouTube. It's yesterday, and the guy was talking about it and showing the interface, and the video went for 8 minutes and he's talking it up. Not once did he show an example of someone singing and using it, and I left a comment going, you talked a lot, but I didn't hear any examples. Says a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, it really does. And in modern music, it gets used. I get it. It's like any other tool. Tools are good, but use the right tool for the right job. And, for a singer, your best tool is to do enough takes that you've probably got your best take in there somewhere. You may have to comp together 4 or 5 takes to get exactly what you need. Nothing wrong with that. But again, rather than saying, well, it's a little dodgy, but I'll fix it in pitch correction. No, just do it until you really feel comfortable and confident that it's good.
Yeah, and you mentioned comping, and there's still a lot of people out there who don't know what comping is, but it's an integral part of recording vocals. And you'd know as good as anyone who's sung for a long time, Chris, that sometimes the worst vocal takes end up being the ones that you keep on the song because somehow the two tracks that you've got laid on top of each other, they shouldn't work. But for some reason, there's something in that sonic that is you can't
Yes.
you can't
Oh my
recreate.
God.
You can't recreate it.
All the time.
Yeah.
I've got a kind of a fairly strong vibrato towards the end. And, I always listen to my vocals absolutely dead solo, just the vocals, which is painful.
Brave.
And anybody's done it's painful.
Yeah.
And I will have tracks that I go, yikes, what the yee? But then when I'll put it with the other one where I've doubled the vocal, and like you said, shouldn't work, and I go, damn, that sounds great. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
I know that's the wrong note, but it doesn't matter because it sounds right in this song.
So how many guitars do you own? And what about your did you say your interface, or did I not catch that?
Yeah, it's a Behringer Euphoria UM something 200 or 202, one of those. It's been rock solid for 2.5 years.
Oh, hey, again, we live in a world where like people can upgrade to this one and say, "Oh, I'm going to get this one. It's so much better." It's ones and zeros, man. Converts analog to digital. That's all it needs to do.
If it works and there's no latency or very little latency, you're golden. That's all. But yeah, I'm not a guitar collector per se. I've got the tools that I need to do the job. I own 2 basses. I have my Gibson Victory bass, which this one was built in 1982. Now, I originally had a Victory bass when I was playing back in the day, which I loved, and it was a single pickup, got stolen. And when I started playing in this church, I found this bass, and man, the guy didn't want a whole lot of money for it because it's heavy as a brick. And of course, that's what I love about it. It's right behind me right now, and it's still playing the note that I played on it last week. The sustain is ridiculous. But you can't be a skinny kid and play this bass because it's all rock maple and it's so friggin' heavy. And then I have an Epiphone Thunderbird, which is my primary when I was playing live, and that's what I used. And I love that guitar. Just as soon as I picked it up, I knew it was the one. And I'd been looking for a Thunderbird for 25 years. I'd owned one briefly in like 1980, and it was a piece of crap. And I bought it because I love Thunderbird basses, but it was a bad bass. And so I didn't keep it but like 6 months and got rid of it. The Ibanez you see behind me it's a 1-year model. It's an ARX 300. And I found it in a music shop used in Salida, Colorado 2 years ago. Again, my wife and I were celebrating 4th of July, and we just stumbled into the music shop, and they had a couple tellies, and I love tellies. And I was going to play the telly, but I didn't have a humbucker guitar. And so I thought I'd pick this one up. And I didn't play this guitar 5 minutes before I knew that it was coming home with me. and same thing, I was in Bozeman, Montana, visiting my father this past summer. And I'd been looking for a Yamaha or a Fender or something acoustic electric 6-string. And same thing, I picked one up, and 5 minutes, I'm like, man, I want this guitar. But, it was a couple $100, $300 or something. And I put it back down, and we're heading out of the store. And my wife said, "You want that guitar, don't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but it's $320 or whatever it is." She goes, "Go buy it." And this is the kind of wife that I have. My 4 favorite guitars, she's bought all 4 of them. She bought that Thunderbird bass. She told me to buy the Ibanez. She told me to buy this Yamaha. And she bought me a cigar box guitar.
Nice.
Which I
want one so bad just to have it.
Oh, they're hard to play. They're hard to tune. They're hard to play. The one song that we played with the banjo, I Like Whiskey, there's actually a little bit of that guitar in there mixed low. But man, it's howly and it feeds back, and you got to be very careful with it, but it's fun to play.
Just to have it,
Yeah. I go out on my back deck, and, in the summer, I'll have a glass of whiskey, and I'll just be out there with my cigar box guitar, wang, 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 and, driving the neighbor's dogs nuts.
Nice. I just got my first serious bass. I bought a jazz bass, and you're right, it's so heavy. Every time I picked it up, it's so heavy, and I just want to play metal. But only recently I just bought this sucker, and man, it makes me so happy. It's so light. It is so light. Cost me a lot of money, but oh god, I'm playing the bass now more than I am guitar. Absolutely playing bass more than guitar because it's such a fun instrument to play. And because I'm a drummer, I just love finding the gaps and the places in drums. I find bass super interesting.
Yeah.
All right, we are, man, I always say to people normally before the show, trust me, it's gonna go really quick. I didn't get to say that to you today, but these shows fly. So let's let everybody know in the description, folks, down below, there's all the links to Chris's music, YouTube, there's SoundCloud down there. Go and do all the stuff, sub him up. Boom. Do all that stuff. Lastly, I want to ask you, are you considering releasing some of this stuff on a digital distribution that you make through someone like DistroKid?
I have got to, at some point, get on DistroKid, and it's on my to-do list for this year. I didn't think I had enough songs that were that interesting, and then, got invited to the show and started pulling together the catalog and go, well, damn, maybe you do. So it's on my to-do list. So I think I'm going to do that, and I don't know that anybody will buy them, but if a couple of people listen to them and like them, that's great.
$20 a year, man. And you can use my link down in the description. You get 7% off. Thanks, DistroKid.
There you go.
I'm not even doing a sponsored show today. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to hit you with the last question I smash everybody with. If somebody is considering becoming creative, Chris, when would you suggest that they start?
As soon as possible. Kids are creative as all get out. And unfortunately, it gets beat out of them a lot of times, either by adults or the system or whatever. And that's a shame. I mean, if you get a bunch of little kids together, they can all sing, they can all dance, they can all play, and that gets lost sometimes. So find your inner child, your inner creative, and just go for it. And you might really surprise yourself.
Abso-fucking-lutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. All right. I want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you so much for spending some time and being so candid and telling us a little bit about who you are. I've been looking forward to this. I think it was Russ. I said to Russ in Clubhouse, I was like, I'm thinking about getting Chris Lane Sr. on. What do you reckon? And he went, fuck yeah, get him on, you cunt. Because Russ is
okay. Was he talking to you or me?
He's talking to me. He calls he calls everybody the C word. It's a language here in Australia that we use, all the time. So yeah,
just checking.
I'm really glad that I got you on. I'm really glad that everybody's come along here. Thank you all so very much. Make sure you smash the like and support the channel. I want to thank the super chats that came through earlier on as well. And you guys rock. It's a great YouTuber sphere here we have. And keep supporting each other because it inspires me every day and makes me want to get up and help teach people new things, So, and let's all keep learning, yeah, because there's so much more to learn. You're never going to know everything, and that's a beautiful thing.
On.
So we're going to go out with. I thought this was appropriate to go out with the way the world is right now. This is Eyes Wide Open. Tell us a little bit about Eyes Wide Open, Chris.
Well, you'd mentioned my running feud with Zuckerberg, and the world is a giant propaganda machine. Everybody has an agenda, and nobody tells the complete truth. And you just need to be aware of that. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't. They just accept what they're being fed on face value, and that's a mistake. Always check your sources, always get differing opinions, always look globally, big picture, and pull all those disparate elements together, and then maybe you'll get a little closer to the truth. And so that's the song just said, keep your eyes open.
All righty. I will see you guys on Saturday for my opening hour. I'm not sure what I'm doing, but trust me, it's going to be spicy. Next week, we have a really cool interview with a developer who's made a great app called Riffler, which generates guitar riffs and stuff. So it's going to be really cool. We've got lots of great shows, lots of great apps coming up and stuff over this week. So please stay tuned to the channel. And let's go out with Eyes Wide Open. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you.
Remember,
appreciate it.
Do the things that make you happy, folks. Remember, mistakes make you better. And you know what? If we do these things, we shall all rise together. We'll see you soon. Adios. Bye-bye.